way, maybe, hopefully it'll get all this. Who knows? So yeah, we're recording now. And maybe you can see the board. Who knows? This is kind of awkward. Whatever.
Makes me so happy.
Okay. You get a cough drop in here. You probably want to probably switch to there so you can see.
Okay.
Although mostly today I'm just going to be talking.
Okay.
And not going too deep into anything.
Okay.
So, get my poker.
I love you.
The goal of this class, really, I don't even know if I call it a class, is I'm just going to try to cram everything I have to teach you about how to write a kick-butt research paper in a wide variety of settings, and probably mostly in college, into this couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And this is more like a brief overview. Today I kind of just want to give you guys an idea of what the big picture looks like. Because a lot of times I'll be telling kids how to write these. And I'll be focusing on one aspect. And the name of the game here is can't see the forest for the trees. Right? We'll be talking about grammar. And we'll go, that's why I put, don't travel down the rabbit hole. Because
don't get too caught up
in one little thing. Because a research paper at the end of the day is it's just a paper. And we have to remember that. But this is mainly, these are the things we're going to talk about. And I'll probably spend a day on grammar, a day on finding sources, probably a day on citations, a day on organizing and outlines, and maybe proofreading. But I just want you to get an idea of the big picture here. Proofreading. Most people lose points on a paper when they proofread, or don't proofread, more importantly. And it sounds like common sense to say you should proofread your paper. But so many people do it wrong. And I'll talk about this later as well. When you proofread a paper, you need to proofread it before and after you printed it out, if you're turning in a print copy. Because you're going to catch things on that paper printed that you never saw on your computer screen. Always. It's the biggest mistake I see all the time. I see people go to the library and they hit print and they carry it straight to class.
I'll look it over and make sure everything's right. I mean, I can move forward, it's bad.
Print it off, they'll look at it on Word or Google Docs or whatever.
It looks fine.
It looks great. Right. It's just not a good idea. And I know that, you'll get in a hurry. Second thing is you need to consider the audience, or more specifically the professor. Everybody likes different stuff. If you are doing a paper for an English class, you need to pay extra attention to grammar. If it's for a history class, you need to make sure you're citing it the way they want it. The cool thing about citations is I'm finding now that with most professors outside of specific classes like English and maybe history, when they have you write a paper, which will happen a lot, they don't care what format you cite it as.
Now I've heard, I'm familiar with MLA and isn't there another form, APA?
APA.
See, that's the new thing I've heard about. And basically on MLA, I don't feel like in high school we've barely done any citations. But MLA, I know when you do that, you can go on the MLA website, find your sources, cite it, and fill out that little, website of information like who was the publisher and all that. And then that'll be your site for you. And when you're done with your paper in college, are you just going to put that on the back, here was my citation? How does that work?
In MLA format, and I'll probably just spend a whole day on MLA. Your paper on the back has a works cited page at the end of it. And it is very simply a list of every source you use inside of your paper in MLA.
That's all that citations are, just the places like say you use Google or like Wikipedia, you put those?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We'll have a whole discussion about Wikipedia later.
Okay.
I'll probably just spend a whole day on MLA and explain it. MLA is what you will use often. Any English paper always will be MLA. And the only reason you'll use it is even though it's really only for English papers or literature papers, a lot of professors know that it's common and they'll give you the option. I would always choose it as an option when available because it's the most common and to me the most easy to understand.
What is MLA?
It's the formatting. When you're writing a paper, it's the paper format that is assigned for English papers. When I assign a research paper, it needs to be formatted in MLA format. Don't worry. I'm just giving you a big picture. APA is American Psychological Association. It originated for people who were doing psych papers, but now it's really used in history papers and more technical subjects in school. I only had to do it once, and if you're going to be like a doctor or something, APA will be something you have to use. Just like MLA, it's a certain type of format. There's places you can go to see how to do it. Don't worry, I'm going to show you all that stuff. So for citations and formatting, we'll spend a whole day on that. It's really not hard at all once you know where you need to go to learn. We're going to talk about that. Okay, finding sources. This is, if I had to pick one of these that the college students now are so behind on and freaking just totally in the dark, it's this one. Because they're using dated information from their teachers. Your professors, when they assign a paper, are likely going to say, I want this many sources. It could be 5, it could be 15, it depends where you're going to school, the professor. That's not important. What's important is that you know that number. They could also say, I want 5 books, I want 5 that are digital. Okay? So the students are going to say, okay, so I guess I need to go to the library today and then go to the internet tomorrow and find some sources. Sources have to be what we call scholarly. Scholarly source is basically source is credible. It's not from Coca-Cola.com. It's not scholarly. It's not from Yahoo News.
You mean like
Maybe something like a government website that
Like
a
.gov or
Harvard professor
.edu.
writes,
Yes.
something like that.
Anything from the EDU website, .org. I'm going to give you guys the ultimate list of cheat codes for this. I mean, I could spend a whole day on this because I figured out. I don't know how many people know about this. It's funny, most of the students that know about this stuff are probably the bad students that are trying to really undercut their time. They've really looked at the tricks.
it would be, that made us everything comes to the computer stuff. That's going to be so bad. So it's like when to buy your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's real technological.
You asked me to buy my phone, he didn't realize that I probably know 10 times as much as he does about tech. I was building computers when I was 8.
Oh, God, yeah, you know it's us.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to touch on these real quick today.
Okay.
You may be given a subscription to JSTOR from your school. It's a website. Hopefully your school will provide you with one. Obviously, we have Galileo here. That's another one. Chances are, whatever school you go to, they'll give you a subscription to some kind of online article database to use. I would take that one. But another one, if they don't, find some way to get a subscription to JSTOR. It's a database, and it just has scholarly articles in it about what the heck ever. The best advice I can give you is use as many of these as possible, and you need the right tool for the job. The next one that is still a little bit new, it's been around for about 4 or 5 years. People still, I guess, haven't caught on. There is a Google filter you can use. It's a website called Google Scholar. It uses the Google search engine, which is awesome. But the complaint I get from professors and me is, don't use Google. It'll turn up all kinds of garbage that's not scholarly on a paper. Google Scholar uses all the Google stuff, and it's this massive list, but it filters out everything that is like not kosher common papers. And it's probably, for amount of content, like if you're really trying to find something and you're like, I need a lot of hits, Google Scholar is going to turn back a lot of stuff. The caution here, and I'll show you how to use all this stuff, for sure. The caution with Google Scholar is, with great power comes great responsibility, right? Spider-Man. You're going to feel like Peter Parker when you put something in here, because it's going to give you a lot, and not all of it's going to be stuff you want. But you're going to sift through it, and you're going to find, I found some gold on here. And sometimes it's going to be stuff that's like, we're going to give you the first 20 pages of the book, and the rest of it you got to like pay to rent it out. But hey, maybe something on those 20 pages is something I need, and guess what? The date and the publisher on those first 20 pages, and that's all I need for a reference citation for my Works Cited page. So I didn't pay a dime. Right? Use whatever you can grab at, really. Like, I've got some access to some databases that I probably shouldn't have, but dang it, they referenced on my papers. And the ultimate one that, I don't know why people won't realize this. Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying, don't ever cite Wikipedia. You know that. Just don't.
Yeah.
Professors will tell you this, and you'll be in the back of the room like, duh. You know, I have to tell these kids don't cite Wikipedia.
Yeah.
It's not smart. It's lazy. Here's what they're not telling you, and they may not even know this, some of the older professors. To cite something, or to write something on Wikipedia, you have to have a source. And Wikipedia requires all the sources to be scholarly sources.
Oh, wow.
If you scroll to the bottom of the Wikipedia page, they list every source in the article, and they have links to them. I'm just going to show you something. This is. I found.
So what they write might not be credible, but what their source should be.
I wrote a 25-page paper on the causation of World War I, purely using sources off the causes of World War I Wikipedia page. I'm going to show you how. Once people realize this, it's like you've opened the magic box, and I felt like an idiot when I figured this out. This is just, I can write a whole paper using this method. I don't even need JSTOR and Google Scholar. Okay, I'm writing a paper on causes of World War I. Okay, now I'm going to use this page to find all my info for my paper, but I'm not going to cite this page. I'm going to cite what they've cited. So I'm going to go down here to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. Okay, so here we've got imperialism or social Darwinism. That sounds so smart. Social Darwinism. Okay. Nationalism made it a competition between peoples, nations, races, blah, blah, blah. That sounds really good. I want to use that in my paper. I can't cite it though, it's Wikipedia. Oh, look.
Oh man, that's those numbers thing? I never knew what those little numbers meant.
Let me zoom. I want to make sure you guys can see this.
Yeah, I can't really see what you're talking about.
Where did that go? Imperialism, social Darwinism. Okay. Let me zoom in one more time. Okay. Yeah. So nationalism made it a competition between peoples, nations, races rather than kings and elites. Just some awesome stuff in here about the thinking. Whatever. It's awesome. And they cited it. Richard Weckart, 2004, From Darwin to Hitler, Evolutionary Ethics. It's a book. It's got an ISBN number. I'm going to Google it. It's not coming up there. I'm going to copy paste it. Right? We're going to put it in our browser. Oh look, From Darwin to Hitler. And actually, here's an excerpt from it right here. It's a book review. That's all we want. JSTOR. Well, what do you know?
Jason, wow.
This is also a review. I'm just going to do this. There we go. It's on Amazon. It's really expensive. We're not buying it, obviously. It's not what we want to do. However, here's what we can do. We really liked what he said right here. It was awesome. And we're going to copy this, put it into Google. And we're also going to put in this guy's name, Weckart. Okay, yeah, it linked us to the Wikipedia page. Whatever. Okay, here's the point. We have a source here. This book is citable. It's a scholarly book. It's an expensive and new scholarly book. And we have a quote from it on this Wikipedia page. I want to quote that book. I'm going to use that quote. But I'm not citing Wikipedia. I'm citing that book. Right? Now,
See where you're going.
I might need to do a little bit of digging to find out what page that quote's on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guaranteeing you I will figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what we're getting at.
I see what you got.
Yeah. Now the other thing is some of these books, not all of them are books. Some of them are articles. Some of them are history records, right? Obviously that book, not available for free, but a lot of these are. If you just Google around, you can rent them from libraries. That one is, since it's 2004, it's going to be hard to find for free,
Yeah.
right? But most of these are not that new. You can see your 1906, 1962, 1954. Those are the ones that you will be able to dig up online. And the cool thing I like to do with those is use Wikipedia to find sources. So you don't necessarily have to use the quote that you find on Wikipedia. You can say, oh, hey, I just found this article they referenced here. This looks really good. I'm going to read this and use it. And it's basically like using JSTOR and Google Scholar, but you're being really selective with what you're using. And your professors are going to be reading your paper. They're going to have all these really fancy sources, and these really insightful quotes. And we're like, wow, they must have spent hours at the library. They're going to be really impressed, right? That's what we're doing here. The other thing is, that book, that's a print source. You found that on the internet, right? You went and found that in Barnes & Noble or something. And hey, now technically you found it on the internet, but they don't know that. You cite that sucker as a print source, because that shows that you went and tracked down the book and opened it up, and they're not going to see that much. Most of what professors are used to seeing now is, oh, .edu, and I found this, and kids are lazy now. They don't want to go find print sources, but the fact is, all the print sources are on the internet, right?
Wow.
E-books and whatever. Okay, moving on. Notes, phone your friend. What do I mean by that?
Research.
Kind of, yeah. Obviously, we got smartphones now. When you see something in a book, if you're in the library, you got to grab it and take the book with you. Take a picture of it. Take a picture of the inside publisher's cover, get your publisher and your date and all your reference for your works cited page, and then take a picture of the pages you need.
I mean, that's easy. I never would have thought of that.
Or go to Barnes & Noble. You know how long they'll let you sit in there and click with your phone?
All day, the clothes.
There's so many expensive books in there. I would get on Wikipedia, find all these books.
Then go to Barnes & Noble.
Click. Spend like an hour and a half. These are good. That's going to be for like your really big papers that you really need to wow them. That's why I said, I'll travel down the rabbit hole so far, guys, because if they just assign you a 5-page paper over Beowulf, don't kill yourself over it, right? It's probably going to have like maybe 5 sources required, maybe 8 for like a British Lit Comp class. It's just required, whatever, or a history class. Like, oh, give me paper about Columbus. 5 sources and 1 primary source, 3 secondary sources, whatever. Don't rake yourself over the coals. When this stuff really comes in handy is for like your term papers and your really big like thesis type papers where they're 10, 20, maybe even more pages. Depending on where you go to school, some of these professors will ask you for term paper of 20 pages. And that's really not as much as it sounds like. Double spaced, 12-point font, pop that out in 2 or 3 days. But you got to fill it up with something. And I find that you need to have a good. We'll talk about this with the organizing and how you outline a paper. You need to have a good balance of your own words and sources, quotes from sources, but a lot of your paper can be filled up by good quotes from sources.
So could I do all this, I find some really awesome sources, I get all the information I need, so I put that in my paper. Well then, I kind of put what I think, what I take away from that, I write about that too, that's just kind of
That's the point of the research.
Yeah.
Is you're using other people's observations about something to help you make an argument. So, examples. Okay, colonial Latin American history. Had a class, had to write a paper on Columbus. My position in the paper was that Columbus was a jerk. My main source for my paper was Columbus's primary journals, because if you read them, he's a jackass.
Is he really?
Yes.
Is he like me?
I didn't really need that many secondary esoteric sources to make my argument for me, although I had sprinkled in a couple just to be fancy. All you're doing is using outside sources to support your own argument. So you would say something like, for example, this is a history paper. Columbus frequently lied during his navigational reports to make it look like he was traveling farther than he actually was. This was so that the Queen, who was going over his records, would believe he had made it to India instead of wherever the heck.
Yeah.
And then you say, for example, quote, Columbus, such and such, right? Today I forged my documents. Christopher Columbus, right?
Yeah.
So you're just, all you're doing is using that as a support.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's really, we'll get more into it tomorrow. Well, no, not tomorrow. Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
And I will upload this